I really wasn't going to do this. And over the last hour and a half, I've run through several scenarios of how I really wanted to get up in front of you, Adya. And so I'll start on the bright side.
Okay.
Yesterday in the guided meditation, well, first of all, I want to say that your image of the translucent bubble really spoke to me as well, really affected me. I really got that.
Great.
And in the guided meditation, I believe I heard every word you said, and I couldn't tell you what one of them was. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the meditation, I knew I had been the bubble. Mm-hmm. All that existed was the I am.
Yeah.
That's all there was.
That's why you can't remember anything that was said.
Yeah. It really wasn't necessary. Mm-hmm. One other thing, too. My whole life, since I was quite young, I've had this feeling like I've been protected. Mm-hmm. You talked about the inherent trust. Mm-hmm. And I felt that. I felt that I was protected, mm-hmm. and that I would be okay no matter what.
Mm-hmm. You have been.
And I have been. And in the last 2-3 years, this has been challenged for me. I went to my first retreat with you 3 years ago or so, mm-hmm. and got up and told you that I'd been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.
That's right, yeah.
In Omega about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's a progressive disease.
Yeah.
And the symptoms are difficult sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I said I started on the bright side because the rest, other than yesterday, the rest of the retreat has really been difficult for me. Mm-hmm. I've had trouble staying focused. I fall asleep during your talks. I then sort of, on the contrary, I have trouble sitting during the meditations. Mm-hmm. And my tremor starts, and I feel restless.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I'm going to make it through this 40 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm angry about that. Mm-hmm. And I guess I want some advice. I want some counsel. Mm. Because I have a strong preference here.
Mm-hmm. Of course
My preference is not to have this condition.
Of course, yeah.
And not to be walking down this path of a progressive illness where there is no cure. Right. There's no really known way to stop the progression.
Yeah.
And knowing that I could project a future which would not be very bright for me. Mm-hmm. And especially when it seems to get in the way. And I know I'm making all this up. Getting in the way of my mm-hmm. ability to experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've been given one of my favorite terms ever that Ram Dass coined, fierce grace. He termed that not, when he was sitting in a room and he was trying to comfort somebody and said, "Oh my gosh, yes, you have fierce grace." He happened when, as he said, he got stroked. And I distinctly remember him not long after he got a stroke. It's 6 months, less than 6 months, and I was at a conference and he was there to talk, and bless his heart, he could barely get words out at all. I mean, he gave a 10-minute talk and it took him an hour and a half. And so when he talked about fierce grace, it was the gritty, the real version, not the spiritualized version. And so you've got a gritty reality that you're dealing with. I understand that. It's a gritty reality. It's one of those things that you can't just slip away from, right? And The reason I use that term sort of fierce grace is I remember being really touched about how he talked about how he viewed his stroke. He of course came from Indian tradition, and where you kind of attribute everything to the guru, and as far as I know, it very well could have been his guru, but he had said, "My guru stroked me." Right, and that was his context. That's what he believes, and that's what he believes to this day. My guru stroked me, and he had talked about how for him, for his makeup, it was probably the only way that he was ever really going to learn what it meant to really surrender. And it's not a nice way, and it's not pretty, and his life at times isn't. But nonetheless, it was, he saw, this is my way. This is the way where I really let go. This is it. It's gritty, it's rough, it's real, and yet there it is. And it seems to me, I can't tell you something that's going to make it all easy. That would be to put a spiritual hue on it that wouldn't be real.
And I'm not looking for that.
I know you're not looking for that. I'm glad. If you were, I wouldn't have even talked to you this long.
Yeah.
Do you know?
No, I know that this is reality.
Yes,
there's no looking away from this.
That's right.
And I can, hope that things will not go badly too fast. I can hope that there'll be cures. I can hope for all that.
Sure.
But the reality is that the disease is progressing.
Yeah, for right now, it's going the way it's going, and you can get angry, and you may, and you can go through all those stages of the way that we push against the inevitable. But my favorite definition that I ever heard of enlightenment, because I liked it because it was so real, and in many ways it corresponded to my experience, was said by a Jesuit priest who's no longer alive. I actually loved his writings, Anthony DeMillo. Spent a lot of time up on the East Coast. And he defined enlightenment as an absolute cooperation with the inevitable. And I think if I would feel like I want to leave you with any mantra, it would be an absolute cooperation with the inevitable. And that's always our only avenue to being free.
I hear you, and I know that's right. I mean, because the inevitable for all of us is death.
Right.
And it takes a easier or harder path to get to the end point, but ultimately we're all cooperating with death. But what do I do along the way? What do I do when I get up in the morning and I'm angry? Because
you take it in, man. You take it in. You just take in being angry. You just take it in. You don't push it away. You're angry, you just take it in, you breathe it in, you don't move away from it. It's also absolute cooperation with the inevitable. If you're angry, you're angry. And so often if you let yourself be angry, there's that sorrow underneath it, and then you just let that, you breathe that in, with its searing, piercing quality that sorrow can have, or grief can have, or anger can have, you just take it in. You don't flinch away from it. You don't try to be anything other than what you are. On all levels, right down to the very, very human level. So you wake up and you're angry, and you can be angry at yourself for being angry too.
Yeah.
Or you just, there it is, okay. There's the all being angry right there. And you just take it in. See, most people, they'll experience the anger. They'll experience maybe quite deeply. But what they don't do is they're afraid of it, so they don't take it in. They don't really meet it. Or if they have grief or sorrow, they don't totally meet it, so they stay stuck there. They stay stuck there.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. I'm glad we talked.